Going to the next slide. Admitting that we have been wrong, and this is never easy. It means losing face, it means starting all over again, and this is always painful. It means saying, I am sorry. It means recognizing that we have the ability to change. These things are terribly hard to do, but unless we turn, we will be trapped forever in yesterday's ways. God, help us to turn from callousness to sensitivity, from hostility to love, from pettiness to purpose, from envy to contentment, from carelessness to discipline, from fear to faith. Turn us around and bring us back toward you. Revive our lives as at the beginning, and turn us toward each other, for in isolation there is no life.
Say Shamayim, Shamayim, Va'aretz, Aliti, Lamotrot Lecha, Ayanu. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilchil yad yeminecha, Yom HaShemesh lo yakecha, v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeitecha uvoecha me'ata me'ata ve'ad I now join you, or invite you to join me in lighting the candles. So if you have your candles with you, feel free to grab a match or lighter and join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We continue together with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malechei Hasharit, Malechei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malechei Hashalom, Malechei Elyon. Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nil Shalom, Malchei Hashalom, Malchei Elyon. Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malchei HaShalom, Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
I'm just noticing this, that the liturgy changes for Elul with this. Did anyone else notice that it's not Tzedchem, but Shuvchem, which is to return for peace? And I think it's a beautiful change that surprised me, and I just wanted to point that out.
We continue together with Chatzi Kaddish. Vitkadash miraba, Berma divrach yotev yamich malchutev, Bechayechon uvyomechon, Uchayedeko bet Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, Uvizman kariv, Vehimeru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabba mevarach, me'alam ulam me'almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yithalel, v'yithalal, Shemei dekurishah brichu, lahela mikol berchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'himeru, amen. Please rise if you are able and willing.
There is no human being who does not carry a treasure in the soul, a moment of insight, a memory of love, a dream of excellence, a call to worship.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed.
Holy is twilight, the realm of in-between, and so our sages taught, pray in the moments when light and darkness touch. We are all twilight people, beyond categories and labels. May the sacred in-between of this evening suspend our certainties, soften our judgments, widen our vision. Let it illumine our way to the God who transcends all boundaries and definitions. Blessed are you, God of all, who brings on the twilight. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, for you are blessed, the one who loves your people Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. You may be seated if you were standing. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Truth and faith, these are fundamental to our existence. God alone is their source, and we are Israel, a people of God. Our sovereign saves us from tyranny, redeems us from its violence through countless wonders, from its brutality through great feats beyond measure. We are Israel, a people of God, the giver of life, who would not let our feet give way, the maker of miracles for us against Pharaoh, of signs and portents in the land of Egypt, the one who brought our people Israel from its midst to enduring freedom.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh, norat elot osefele, norat elot osefele, ma'alechutecha ranu vanecha, bokei ayam livnei Moshe, Zeli, Zeli, anu ve'amru, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed, Yaelai, 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 ונאמר כי ודע אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Bless our sleep with peace, Adonai, and awaken us to life when we rise. With power sublime, spread over us your shelter of shalom, and through your wisdom restore us, make us whole. Let your name proclaim your presence in our lives, be our shield, make us stronger than the enemies we face, illness and war, famine and sorrow, and stronger than the enemies in our hearts, wickedness and sin. Carry us to safety as on wings. For you are the monarch of grace, the sovereign of compassion. You are the one who cares for us and sets us free. Watch over us, we who go forth to life. Watch over us that we may come home in peace, now until the end of time. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed one, you spread over us a canopy of peace, a shelter of shalom over all Israel, your people, and over Jerusalem. Stopped and breathed a new soul. The act of stopping to refresh oneself by taking a breath is intrinsic to the experience of Shabbat. Renewing our souls on the seventh day is both life-saving and conducive to spiritual growth. Our sages believe that on the Sabbath we are endowed with a higher level of awareness, perhaps because we take the time to stop and breathe. Said Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, the Holy One gives an extra soul to a human being on the eve of Shabbat. When Shabbat leaves, the extra soul departs. The additional soul helps us leave behind the turmoil of the week and experience the joy of Shabbat.
Ask you to please rise if you are able. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasei Avot ve'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, Le'ma'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Hoseh u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Zerat Sarah. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחלקל החיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסירים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מלחמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
May be seated. A year of your goodness, your crowning gift. Your paths grow lush with oil drop by drop. Pastures for grazing thrive in the wilderness, and the hills are encircled with joy. Flocks of sheep clothe spacious fields, and the valleys wear garments of grain. Filled to bursting, they shout, they praise, an exultant song of delight. Rabbi Sobo?
Sorry, I hit my unmute button. To shape the world anew, the sea pushes back off the shore, yielding to gravity with a sigh, not a leaving, but a letting go, a retreat into its own deep fullness. The sun relinquishes its hold on the sky, only to rise once more at daybreak. As the tide rolls back in, a different kind of letting go, an unspooling across the expanse, as we creatures of earth are granted a fresh start, a chance to gather the debris and shape the world anew. Wholeness is a kind of holiness, the stasis of perfection, but brokenness demands recreation, a churning cycle of endings and beginnings, the act of pulling hope and brightness from the wreckage, taking the jagged shards and making of them, if not wholeness, a new sort of sacred splendor.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel beratzon utehil ratzon leratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha shevu ruchacha ruchacha alinu shevu ruchacha alinu v'teches elahenu b'shuvecha l'Tzion. Baruch atah Adonai Amachazir Shechinato
For all these gifts, for the gifts I received today, air in my lungs, pulse in my veins, my restless mind alive and curious, awakened suddenly to beauty, for love and the memory of love, forgiveness when I didn't deserve it, another chance at life. Let my soul give thanks to you. Let me not forget your kindness. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'el hodot. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose goodness deserves thanks and praise.
Peace, profound and lasting, all embracing. Peace, let this be your gift to Israel, your people. In your goodness, author of peace, bless us and all people, every season, every hour, with the peace that is yours to give. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael, bashalom. You are Adonai, the Blessed One, who blesses us with peace. And we'll take a moment for private prayer and reflection. If you want to use the words in the Siddur, if you have it called up on your screen, or the words of your heart, and we will rejoin in a few moments.
Shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvim V'yimru, v'yimru, Amen.
And okay. So the high holidays and Yom Kippur are fast approaching, and we rabbis spend this month of Elul encouraging all of you to take time to reflect and repent and ask forgiveness and think about the past year and all of that good stuff. And then we get to the last 3 verses of Ki Teitzei, this week's Torah portion. And we read, and I'll give you the English, but you can go look up the Hebrew if you want, from Deuteronomy 25:17. Remember what Amalek did to you on your journey after you left Egypt, and how, undeterred by fear of God, he surprised you on the march. When you were famished and weary and and Amalek cut down all the stragglers at your rear. Therefore, when the Eternal your God grants you safety from all your enemies around you, in the land that the Eternal your God is giving you as a hereditary portion, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. So what struck me as I was reading the portion this week is that these last few verses don't sound so forgiving. And as we're in this period of time of the year where we're asked to consider our actions and those we've harmed or those who have harmed us, there comes a point where one might think that a certain action is unforgivable, whether it's something that we did or something that was done to us. And as a rabbi, I could easily respond with, no, there's a whole process of teshuvah, and here's how it works, and you can ask for forgiveness 3 times, and if the person still doesn't forgive you, you're credited as if they did. But we come back to Amalek, and it seems here the Torah is telling us not to forget, and in a way not to forgive. You might recall the incident, which is described a little bit differently back in Exodus 17, But here again in Deuteronomy, we're told not to forget what Amalek did. And it really doesn't seem to fit with the fact that this portion is generally, if not always, I didn't go through all the possible scenarios of the calendar, read during this month of Elul. So I decided to look at these two mitzvot in our verses that are related to Amalek. The passage opens with remember what Amalek did, and it closes with do not forget. So sort of both a positive commandment to remember and the negative commandment to not forget. Rabbinic tradition ties these to the Haggadah, where remembering the Exodus from Egypt is tied to the action of hearing the story each and every year and taking it into our hearts. And the action of not forgetting is tied to teaching it to our children so that the story continues to be passed down from generation to generation. So the same could hold true with the story of Amalek, that we need to hear it in our own day and we need to continue passing down the story. And so to me, this is the lesson that the portion, this chunk of the portion has for us at this reflective time of year. That there's a distinction between remembering and making sure as a group we don't forget. Forgiveness, forgetting, and not bearing a grudge or enacting vengeance are related, but not necessarily one and the same. I'm sure I don't have to ask you to think too hard to come up with a personal example of things that are easy enough to forgive and forget. And times, and conversely, times when we or others maybe forgave, but definitely didn't forget, but perhaps should have. What makes this situation with Amalek somewhat unique is that the actions of the Amalekites were seen as incredibly horrendous. Generally, this incident is understood as an unprovoked attack on the weakest among us, which is counter the attacking from behind, where you'd put the women and the children and the elderly and the frail, was not the way you waged war. Oddly, still not ethical today to attack the weakest in a community. And it begs the question, can we forgive Amalek? Or is part of this remembering and not forgetting that there may be things that we cannot forgive? And I think it encourages us to find a way to forgive specific actions without forgetting, but also without bearing a grudge or taking vengeance. If someone stole something from me or my house, I can forgive them. They can go through the teshuvah process and return what they stole or return the monetary value, et cetera, et cetera. And I may even choose to invite them over my house again, which would be part of the forgiveness that I'm not, and not bearing a grudge, that I'm not holding it against them. But I can also choose to protect myself and my belongings and not leave them in my house alone or be the one that I ask to house sit while I'm on vacation. At least not until they've rebuilt the trust to do so, which would also be part of the teshuvah process, but I'll save that for a different sermon. So this is all fine and good for that remember part of the commandment, but what about that not forgetting part? It seems to be the part that feels a bit more grudge bearing. And here I'll add one more element of our portion. The very beginning, we started with instructions for how to wage war. And some rabbis have pointed out that we already said that part of forgetting is continuing to tell the story. And in telling the story, perhaps part of this is that we're preemptively blotting out future Amaleks that might arise among us. So if we take the lessons we learned from Amalek to guard our weakest, to study the past, to share our stories, even in times of tranquility, perhaps we can protect ourselves from a future Amalek, or even prevent that Amalek from rising to what something in the modern day would look like what Amalek did back in the biblical time. So as we enter into this Shabbat, and as we enter into closer to the middle of Elul, and I will not say how many days we have until Rosh Hashanah, but it is approaching faster and faster every day, I swear. May you ponder what of your own history or of your own year or your own week, even in terms of our weekly cycle of Shabbat, personally or collectively as a group, you wish to remember, what you remember personally and sort of keep in your heart, what you wish not to forget, so such that you tell it to the future generations. And consider, as we move into this new year, in thought and action, how will those memories and how will those stories affect how we move into this year? And that is the thought that I will leave you with for this Shabbat. And I believe we will turn for a prayer for healing, and I will turn it back over to Rabbi Bodney Hallis, since I do not have the Misha Barak list open in front of me.
At this time, we call to mind those in our community who are in need of healing. In particular, we think of Lorna Condert, Jan Berman, Jerry Butler, Robin Moore, Stephanie Noble, Gail Russick, Melinda Glovka, Mike Ammons, Helen Fine, Jeremy Wise, Paul Levine, Ed Bulin, Harvey Olson, Christine Wagner, Tracy Huddleston, Joe McKenna, Ellen Goodrich, Mark Romanowski, Jerry McDonald, Richard Lieberman, Joel Pinsker, Marty Sacker, Sandy Sapphire, Laura Holtzinger-Levin, Avraham Ben Avraham Visara, Bob and Gert Kahn, Dave Bussey, Ron Levine, Rachel Magdalene, Jay Bainbridge, Chelsea Smith, Shava Eta, Rory Freisler, Bernice Brandt, and Deborah Seidel. And if there are others, I invite you to call them forward in your heart, or if there are names that need to be pronounced differently, I invite you to call those out as well. As we say, Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim, blessed are you, O God, who brings healing to all who are in need of healing.
And we'll join together with Debbie Friedman's Misha Berach prayer. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Ask that those who are able to please rise for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. You may be seated.
our thoughts turn to loved ones whom death has recently taken from us in recent days. We are in a period of Shiva for Hyla Weiskind and a period of Shloshim for Shirley Ross, Ken Lotney, Maxine Weinberger, and Sidel Ballas. We also recall those who died at this season in years past. Our hearts open as well to the wider circles of loss in our community and wherever grief touches the human family. We are observing yahrzeits tonight for Milton Bennett, Aubrey DeVay, Rosa Dora Diamond, Lena Glass Feinberg, Sophia Frank, Rhea K. Israel, Dina Jacobs, Sylvia Cantor, Paul Cuppen, Isaac M. Liebensberger, Louis E. Levinson, David Levine, Marvin Adam Levine, Ruth Lieberman, John H. Margolis, Saul L. Myers, Marion E. Novak, Samuel Pinsker, Albert Raffel, Sydney F. Ressler, Fanny Retsky, Dora Rudin, Harry Schrager, Jack Schwartz, Robert Martin Stern, and Constance Weprin, and all who we call to our minds at this time. I invite you, if you are remembering or in mourning, to please rise first. And then we all rise together. And Rabbi Sobo, if you would like to lead us in this, I will go ahead and share the words again.
Okay. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mivarach le'olam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, Vit hadar, vit ale, vit halal, shemei dukudesha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'imrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, amen. Return, Israel, to the one who takes you back in love. The shofar is sounded from the first day of Elul until the eve of Rosh Hashanah to signal the approaching days of awe. The sound of the shofar implores us to engage in cheshbon hanefesh, in accounting of the soul. The shofar sounds and I am awake, shaken out of the days of sleep. I see the truth. The day of judgment approaches. Soon we will stand before the one who can't be flattered or fooled. Soon we will stand in the courtroom of conscience. Soon we will know the joy of beginning again. Baruch, if you want to join with me in the blessing, feel free. Baruch atah Adonai shomea teruah. Blessed are you, Adonai, who hears the sounding of the shofar. Tekiyah.
That was bad. Sorry. Are you there?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Now I can see you. I'm sorry. So Tekiah again.
Tekiyah.
Did you want to do? There's a Shivarim Teruah that comes next, but you can't see it. I imagine.
Shivarim teruah.
I really want to go.
Tekiyah.
It's spoken from the words of a child. He's not wrong. That's the problem.
That was a good one.
told you.
Yasher Koch, Ethan.
Wow.
If you're not careful, you're going to be sounding shofar for the family service next year.
I think we're good.
Really got to make sure we got that ticky on there for everybody. And we'll conclude our service with Kiddush and Motzi that will be found on the screen in front of you.
I invite you to join me if you have a glass of fruit of the vine. Join me in the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'ahavahu v'ratzoni inchilanu zikaron l'ma'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim ki vanu v'chata ve'otanu kirashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava u'ratzon inchalatanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat l'chaim. L'chaim and amen. As I do not have a piece of challah or a challah loaf, unfortunately, this weekend. Whole Foods was out when I tried to get some, so Rabbi Sobo will model. And okay, both the rabbis coming through. Okay. Motzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. B'te'avon and amen.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I'll have a little bit for all of you.
Thank you all so much for your patience. We just, love technology so much, but it's great to see your faces. So either way, we're at least able to share Shabbat together as a community. And again, we appreciate your patience and just be so thankful that we are not going to be the ones running the technology for high holidays. So there will be no problems. Paid professionals will be taking care of everything. So it is super seamless and will be easy. It won't be on Zoom. It'll be right straight from our website. You click and it'll be right there embedded. It's going to be wonderful. And yes, as Rabbi Soba said, it is quickly approaching. We are excited. We are, of course, nervous, but we are excited for what is coming up. But just know that us three will not be handling the technology, which is a really good thing.
Thank you for a lovely service. It was very nice.
Thank you for hanging in there. I can see that there are fewer people than there were before, and I just want to say thank you for hanging in there. And that my children are still blowing the shofar, so I'm going to mute them.
They're still blowing the shofar.
That was wonderful.
He's good.
Wonderful. This is why I have not taught my child how to sound the shofar yet.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Think I can get away with that for one more year?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea not to teach him.
Like, I feel like a bad rabbi. No, that's grown-up work.
Hi, Paul. It's good to see you again. We're so glad you've been joining us. I'm so glad you're here.
This is great. Shabbat shalom.
Michelle, thank you. I think what is it you offered to do before? Fix the volume or the speaker.
Oh, it's video. I'm sorry.
Freezing now. Oh no.
Is okay?
Nice echo going on.
I think somebody's microphone was picking up their speakers.
I just assumed it was mine, but I don't think it was.
Yeah, I don't know why sometimes that happens and other times it doesn't, you know? Usually it's pretty good at editing that out, but when it's not, it's really not.
Zoom is pretty good at editing it back out. If you use like a different mic from your speakers or things that aren't built into the computer, it's not always as good.
Oh, interesting. So it's if you use the native mic and the native speakers, it's okay. But if you try to
Because then it
mix
like
it up,
knows for sure what feed is you and what feed is what it's spitting back out.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
And then just sometimes newer devices versus older devices or whatnot are better. It's all a settings thing, really.
Yeah.
And or stuff I don't understand.
We've had a request that you hear him.
Good one.
I love how he really gets his whole body into it.
Yeah, this is a workout.
Like, that's some real kavana.
He just goes, that was Tekiyat Gadola.
Yeah.
You think? That was Shivarim. At least he knows the names. Which one is
It really makes me want to blow mine out my door. The neighborhood dogs love it.
what, Michelle?
She said the neighborhood dogs really love when she blows her shofar.
Do they howl back?
I just did Katia.
Holy.
Tekiya?
So we live about
Okay, no.
4 or 5 blocks from Miamisburg High School. And so when there are football games, they'll like blow a horn that sounds vaguely like a shofar. So the first fall we're here, it's like a few weeks before high holidays or whatever, we're putting Stephanie to bed. And it's like, there aren't that many Jews. Like, who's sounding a shofar? And it took us a little while to realize that it was the football games at the high school. But I was really confused that first night. Like, that we heard it.
I wonder what that horn looks like that sounds like a shofar, because I think of the shofar as such a unique sound.
I mean, we're also hearing it from like 4 blocks
Sure.
away, so it's like faint, but it's similar to like the ones I've heard them like at soccer games too. Like,
Yeah, those ones that are blown by the tank of whatever, that the pressurized oxygen or whatever.
Air horn, yeah.
Yeah, air horn, right.
but I mean, I've not been to a football game, so I'm pretty darn sure it is not a shofar.
Or it's a Jolly Green Giant blowing it.
But
Yeah, somebody has strong
least now we know
lungs
what
if
it
you're hearing
is.
it 4 blocks away.
Ethan just wanted to make sure that I knew that I should be very appreciative, because not only did he do the mitzvah of helping me do it, but he did it way better than me. So he's right. He said, well, didn't I do it way better than you? I said, yes, you did.
Is he the challah maker too?
What?
Is he the challah maker too?
Usually, often, yeah. Tonight is the first night of all these that we've had Shabbat from home, that my husband is actually having to cover something, so he's not here. So it's just me and the boys trying to keep them quiet. That's why Rabbi Sobo and I were sort of taking turns, because it was going to determine, you know, when they were being quiet and when they were being loud behind me.
Do you mute it and then say, okay, you can be loud for a minute?
Sometimes.
just say, and you know we're a good team when we could do that on Zoom with just like random.
Tina, your turn.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all. And again, yes, thank you so much for your patience. Hope you have a wonderful Shabbat. and look forward to seeing you soon. And I'm going to go eat some dinner.
Sounds good.
Shalom.
Bye.
Shabbat shalom. Me too.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Enjoy your dinner.